4 a.m. First fruits. This is a chapter by chapter Bible study series, and we are on Ezra chapter 8. It is crazy to think that we've been doing this study ever since 1 Samuel. The amount of change I have experienced in my walk with God from doing this study is mind-blowing. Let's get into these words of life. Last chapter ended in a praise, a high note. Ezra is thanking God for his favor, for the provisions, and for the fact that he's going back home with more of God's people. Chapter 8. These are the family heads and the genealogical records of those who returned with me from Babylon during the reign of King Artaxerxes. This whole list includes 1,500 men, not including the women and the children, so quite a bunch of people. And they are returning with the temple treasures and all of the vessels they use in the temple. So they are returning with some very holy and high value items. Verse 15, I gathered them at the river that flows to Ahava, and we camped there for 3 days. I searched among the people and priests, but found no Levites there. NLT said no Levites volunteered to go. Ezra summoned the leaders and had them go to search for more priests. Ezra sent them to the temple servants at Cassiphia, requesting that they get more ministers. This was pretty proactive of Ezra. He's going to need all the help he can get. He's going to help God's people to learn about the law, to obey the law, and to also worship at the temple. And they need all the temple ministers that they can find. In verse 18, it says, since the gracious hand of our God was on us, they brought us Sherebiah, a man of insight. NLT says a man of discernment. A man of insight from the descendants of Mahli, a descendant of Levi, son of Israel, along with his sons and brothers, 18 men. Plus Hashabiah, along with Jeshahiah, from the descendants of Merari and his brothers and their sons, 20 men. There were also 220 of the temple servants, who had been appointed by David, and the leaders for the work of the Levites. All were identified by name. Verse 21. I proclaimed a fast by the Ahava River so that we might humble ourselves before God and ask him for a safe journey for us, our dependents, and all our possessions. I did this because I was ashamed to ask the king for infantry and cavalry to protect us from enemies during the journey, since we had told him, the hand of our God is gracious to all who seek him, but his fierce anger is against all who abandon him. So we fasted and pleaded with our God about this, and he was receptive to our prayer. In preparation to this long and possibly dangerous journey, Ezra calls for a corporate fast for protection and humility. That is a great sign of a good leader. Ezra knew that if he accepted any kind of help from the king, any kind of human protection, it would contradict what they should believe about God. I mean, imagine boasting about how our God protects his people and then asking for help from a pagan king. That would totally demolish the whole testimony of who God is and who he claims to be. They are choosing faith over fear and living it out amongst other non-believers. Ezra then weighs out all the gold, all the treasures, all of the vessels that they're taking to the temple of the Lord, chooses 12 of the leading priests to do this with integrity. In verse 28, it says, then I said to them, you are holy to the Lord, and the articles are holy. The silver and the gold are a freewill offering to the Lord God of your fathers. Guard them carefully until you weigh them out in the chambers of the Lord's house before the leading priests, Levites, and heads of the Israelite families in Jerusalem. So the priests and the Levites took charge of the silver and gold and the articles that had been weighed out to bring them to the house of our God in Jerusalem. They are not treating these holy possessions with a casual hand. They are taking good care of these items. Ezra gives them a sacred task, 4 sacred items, and then a sacred identity. Verse 31. We set out from the Ahava River on the 12th day of the first month to go to Jerusalem. We were strengthened by our God, and he kept us from the grasp of the enemy and from ambush along the way. So we arrived at Jerusalem and rested for 3 days. On the fourth day, the silver, gold, and the articles were weighed out in the house of our God into the care of the priest. Everything was verified by number and weight, and the total weight was recorded at the time. God honors the faith of his people, and everything arrived safely. Not only were they kept safe, but they were strengthened by their God. This chapter concludes with a sin offering. The exiles who had returned finally did a sin offering, and they got back to work. In 36, they also delivered the king's edicts to the royal satraps and governors of the region west of the Euphrates, so that they would support the people in the house of God. They got to work. They chose faith over fear. They chose to trust God's reputation and to keep the testimony of who their God is firm and strong in front of those who don't believe. You know you have a good leader on your hands when he calls for a corporate fast in preparation to something that is going to be a little scary and maybe dangerous. Are our actions showing other people that we truly believe what we say we believe about God? We may have pagan kings in our own life that are watching what we do. They're watching how we move, what we say, and if we truly believe what we say we believe. It's true faith demonstrated by action. Thank you for watching this 4 a.m. and I'll see you in the next 4 a.m. when we cover Ezra chapter 9.